You're not here by chance. Something ancient buried deep within your psyche has guided you here, not through logic, not through routine, but through something older than memory, a pull from the deep where language dies and truth begins, a whisper, a flicker, a disturbance in the unconscious, echoing beneath the surface of your awareness like distant thunder before the storm. You may have felt it in your bones, a restlessness, an ache, the subtle unraveling of a life you can no longer pretend to believe in. That whisper isn't random. It's the voice of yourself, not the self you performed, but the one that waits beneath the noise, the one that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. You weren't led here by accident. You were summoned. If lately your world has felt heavy, fragmented, like a beautiful illusion turning to ash in your hands, it's not because you're broken. It's not punishment. It's initiation. You're not falling apart. You're being stripped bare, so that what is true can finally breathe. We are taught to fear chaos, to see pain as failure, to interpret confusion as weakness. But Jung taught us something sacred. In every descent, the seed of the ascent is born. It is in the darkness that the roots take hold. It is in the undoing that the soul remembers. So if you've been asking, what's happening to me? Let me answer you with clarity. You are awakening. And today, we walk together through 7 signs, not of collapse, but of transformation, not of madness, but of a mind shedding its programming. This is not mere change. It is a psychological metamorphosis, the death of the false self, and the return of the real. If even a few of these resonate, know this: you are not unraveling. You are becoming. Sign 1. The cracks begin to show expanded. You begin to question everything. What once felt unshakable, your beliefs, your ambitions, your very sense of self, suddenly feels like a costume you've outgrown, an identity stitched together by expectation, now coming apart at the seams. You look in the mirror and wonder, whose life am I living? Who decided this was me? The roles you played, the masks you've mastered, the story you've rehearsed so well, they no longer hold. What once gave you direction now feels like a cage. The voice that guided you, your ego, is cracking under the weight of a deeper truth. But this isn't madness. It's not failure. It's a sacred fracture in the wall of illusion. You're witnessing the death of the false self, the unraveling of the persona, that carefully curated mask you worn to belong, to be accepted, to survive. Now it's falling apart. And beneath it, something raw is waking, untamed, unfiltered, unapologetically real. It feels disorienting, unstable, like you've lost your footing on ground that used to feel familiar. But this is not you falling. This is you breaking open. This is the first stir of individuation, when the psyche begins to rebel against the scripted life, when the soul, long exiled to the unconscious, starts to knock hard on the door of awareness. Who am I? What do I actually believe? What if everything I built was never really mine? These are not signs of instability. They are the soul's siren song, a call to wake from the trance. You see, the universe is ruthless in its love. It will strip you bare if that's what it takes to set you free. Every illusion you clung to, every false narrative you built your identity around, is now being dismantled. And it hurts, because ego death is not poetic. It's not gentle. It feels like being torn apart from the inside. But this pain is precise. It's the kind that heals. You are not losing your path. You are finally seeing that the one you were on was never yours to begin with. This fracture, this questioning, it's the first step back to yourself. And once you've tasted that truth, no amount of pretending will ever satisfy you again. This isn't the end. It's the beginning, the breaking of the shell, the first breath after suffocation. You are not unraveling. You are remembering. And the self, the true self, is no longer willing to wait in shadows. Let the cracks spread. Let the structure collapse. Because what's being built in its place will be real. Sign 2. The past starts to fade. One day, you wake up and realize something shocking. You've lost interest in your old life. Your passions feel distant. Your relationships hollow. The routines that once gave you structure now feel like a cage. This is not depression. It's disconnection. A disconnection from the old self. A shedding of psychic skin. Jung called it individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you were told to be. You're not abandoning your past. You're stepping out of it. You're not betraying anyone. You're finally being loyal to yourself. There's grief in this stage. Mourning. But grief is the cost of rebirth. And in that space, something new begins to breathe. Sign 3. The world no longer has the same color. What once seemed important, recognition, status, validation, begins to lose its grip on you. You see through it all now. The systems, the roles, the illusions. You start to ask real questions. What actually matters? What nourishes my soul? This is the collapse of external authority. The moment you stop seeking answers out there and start looking inward, and yes, it's lonely at first. The crowd doesn't follow you into the depths, but that solitude, it sharpens you. It makes space for a voice you've long forgotten, your own. Sign 4, a voice within grows louder. Something has shifted. The world is still noisy, but suddenly you can hear something else. A quiet signal beneath the chaos. Your intuition. You begin to feel it in small ways, a subtle pull, a sense of knowing, a calm certainty that whispers, go this way. It's not logical, it's not rational, but it's real. This voice doesn't speak in words. It speaks in energy, in discomfort when you betray yourself, in peace when you honor your soul. This is the awakening of inner guidance, the reemergence of yourself as the compass. You are learning to trust yourself again. Not the programmed self, not the performative self, but the deeper, wild self that was buried beneath 1,000 shoulds. And once this voice becomes clear, you can never unhear it. Sign 5, growth becomes a necessity, not a choice. You no longer crave comfort, you crave expansion. What used to satisfy you now feels small, like wearing shoes 2 sizes too tight. You're not broken, you're outgrowing. Books, knowledge, transformation, they pull you in, not as entertainment, but as medicine. You want to heal. You want to understand. You want to become. You're drawn to shadow work, depth psychology, and truth, even if it hurts. Why? Because you realize that real peace doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from walking through it and reclaiming the pieces of yourself that were left behind. This is the hunger of the soul. The desire to become whole again. Sign 6. You no longer tolerate what drains you, expanded. You feel it now, with a clarity that cuts deeper than thought. That relationship, that environment, that pattern you repeated 1,000 times. It's no longer just uncomfortable. It's toxic. And though you once justified it, tolerated it, normalized it, something in your body now recoils at the mere thought of staying. It's not subtle anymore. It's visceral. Your nervous system, your energy field, your soul itself, they're all rejecting what drains you because the version of you who needed to endure no longer exists. The old you stayed silent to keep the peace, accepted less to feel loved, bent, shrank, dimmed just to belong. But that self was built in survival, and now you're awakening, not into rebellion, but into truth. You stopped asking, will they be okay if I change? And started asking, will I be okay if I don't? This isn't arrogance. It's self-respect finally taking root. You are no longer willing to abandon yourself for acceptance. No longer willing to betray your inner compass so others feel comfortable. Because you realize something sacred. You cannot rise while clinging to what holds you beneath. You cannot become light while dragging the chains of old wounds. You cannot evolve while entertaining dynamics that keep you small. So you begin to clear space, not from hate, but from love. Love for your own peace. Love for your own energy. Love for the future version of yourself calling from the other side. And yes, it hurts. Letting go always does. There's a strange grief in releasing what once defined you, even when it was poison. You grieve the story, the investment, the identity you built around enduring. But endurance is not evolution. You don't walk away because you're bitter. You walk away because your soul has grown too big for this cage. The truth is, some people were never meant to walk the full path with you. They were only meant to teach you where your boundaries begin. And now that lesson is complete. This is not a rejection of others. It's a reunion with yourself. So you speak less. You react less. You explain less. Because your energy is no longer available for negotiation. And something miraculous begins to happen. The more you honor your truth, the more aligned souls begin to enter your orbit. Connections that feel like oxygen. Relationships that expand you instead of extract from you. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You stop mistaking history for destiny. You stop mistaking tolerance for love. And you start choosing differently. You realize that peace is a non-negotiable. That your nervous system was never meant to live in fight or flight. That love is not supposed to cost you yourself. So now you walk away, not out of fear, but out of alignment. You are not abandoning anything. You are returning to you. Sign 7. The great shedding expanded. Everything begins to fall away, not with violence, not with panic, but with a strange, undeniable inevitability, as if the universe itself has begun performing spiritual surgery on your soul. The distractions, the performances, the noise you once mistook for music, all of it dissolves. At first, you try to cling, to patch the cracks, to hold the scaffolding of the false self together. But something inside you, older than memory, whispers, let it fall. And so, one by one, the identities you wore like armor begin to slide off your skin, the habits you outgrew, the attachments that once defined you, the voices in your head that were never truly yours. They begin to quiet. And what remains? Stillness, silence, a sacred void, not empty, but pregnant with possibility. This emptiness is not absence. It is space, room for something real to emerge. Not a newer version of the false self, but the original self, unmasked, untamed, uncompromised, the one you were before the world told you who to be. And in that space, in that holy undoing, you don't find answers. You find presence. You find depth. You find truth. This is not a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. This is liberation disguised as loss. You are not falling apart. You are shedding the skin of survival, shedding the scripts written by fear, shedding the persona built to please, to protect, to perform. And yes, it can feel like death, because in many ways it is the death of illusion, the death of pretending, the death of the dream that kept you asleep. But what follows death in every myth, in every sacred story? Rebirth. From the ashes of what you were, something ancient rises, not new, but original, not better, but true. This is not about becoming more. It's about becoming less of what you're not, less performative, less conditioned, less divided. And in that lessness, you become whole. So when the world starts to blur, when the old structures collapse, when nothing makes sense anymore, rejoice, because you're not being erased. You're being revealed. And what emerges from that sacred fire is a version of you that was waiting in silence for a lifetime to be remembered. So if something within you stirred, if a sentence, a moment, or even a single word echoed in your soul, don't dismiss it. The mind will try to explain it away. The ego will whisper that it's nothing. But the self knows. You weren't drawn to this message by accident. You didn't find this video. This video found you. Because the psyche always calls forth what it needs when it's ready. And you are ready. This moment is not small. It's the threshold between who you've been and who you're becoming. There's a sacred fire within you, burning not to destroy, but to purify. Let it burn away the lies. Let it consume the masks. Let it turn every fragment of pain into fuel for your rebirth. You are not the wounds. You are not the fear. You are not the story they told you about yourself. You are consciousness awakening, a soul remembering, a being unchaining itself from the illusion of separation. And now, you stand at the edge of something extraordinary. So pause, breathe, feel the gravity of where you are. This is your invitation, to go deeper, to become still, to listen, to transform. And if this video felt like truth, even in a whisper, I ask you, not as a creator, but as a fellow traveler on this path, like this video, not for vanity, but to let the algorithm carry this message to someone else who needs it. Subscribe, not just to follow, but to walk with us on this journey of shadow and light, of integration and awakening. Share this with someone you love, or someone who is lost. They may be standing where you once stood. This might be the sign they've been waiting for. At Carl Jung Depths, we don't just talk about ideas. We descend into the underworld. We explore the shadows beneath the surface. And we emerge with the truth. If you're ready to keep going, we're here every week, peeling back the layers, one truth at a time. This isn't entertainment. This is remembrance. This is transformation. This is you waking up. Until next time, don't just exist. Individuate. Don't just survive. Integrate. And above all, don't fear the dark. It's where the light was born.